Alright, so now we have our DS's third member, the fourth match of the team battle. If Rua loses here, then the match is over. And Rua is using Genesis. He said at the beginning he was either going to use Genesis or Mega Colony. Mega Colony is better for the matchup, but Genesis is a stronger deck and will probably do better if Rua wins this and goes on to the next one. And that's something you have to think about in Gunslinger, not just the deck that's best for your current matchup, but for your subsequent matchups afterwards. Just because you counterpick the one person doesn't mean that you're ready for the person after that, because if the opponent wants to be a dick, they can counterpick you right after you counterpick them. Always a possibility. Always something to look out for. And there are teams who will directly counterpick your fighters in a Gunslinger because they have preconceived knowledge of what you're going to do. That's why it's good to use decks that are able to do multiple things. Unless you can focus on doing one thing and doing it absolutely well. I've noticed that Shiro has gone first, I want to say every single time up to this point. And his deck benefits really, really hard from going first. Shiro, his formation's not quite as strong as it usually is at this point. He's only going to get 3 battles. But considering his main goal is to get Marios to go off, 3 battles is all he really wants and needs. Also, if his Vanguard does get a trigger, he can give a 4th battle to the standing Tidal Assault. Rua's 1 passing, heal trigger, and Shiro heal triggers back. Shiro heal triggers and Shiro's check was 5 grade 0. Second time his deck has done that to him. Unfortunately for Shiro, he had to give the trigger to the Vanguard in order to have that hit and even get that chance. So Tidal Assault couldn't attack. Once again, I say, good to do a 1 pass if that's what it means. Norn attacks the Tidal Assault. I'm actually a little surprised he didn't play Norn in the Vanguard, just so that he has the option to do that for Soul Blast later. But at the same time, if Norn gets retired, he can return it for Legion in case he's running low of Norn in deck. Three battles for the Maelstrom on the field, but Shiro does not have a limit remover on the field, so we're not going to see that. First attack from the Vanguard is blocked, second attack is going for the rear. And Rua has to decide whether or not he wants to take it. Shiro definitely not giving Rua the chance to get a trigger to potentially block his attack. And Rua chooses to no guard. Critical trigger for Shiro. And a heal trigger. Important to note, Rua has more than 4 cards in a drop, so he can Legion next turn if he rides CEO Yggdrasil. And Yggdrasil would be able to go off as well. He rides the fighter collection, the monthly Bushy Road Regalia, and is attacking for 16. Surprised he didn't do a stride. I guess he doesn't have the hand to do it. Because Genesis do have 2 strides, both of which would have been good in this case. And there's Glory Maelstrom, 13k defense. Could have gotten a stride, but wanted 13k defense for later turns. One thing to note about Nega Kaiopagis. Is that what that says? Nega Kaiopagis? Nega Kaiopagis. I'm just gonna call it Kaop. One thing about Kaop, its ability, Soul Blast 6, to give itself plus 10k plus 1 critical, and then if the soul is 2 or less afterwards, it takes the damage. That is actually not a once per turn skill, it's not a limit break, it's not a generation break, it's nothing like that. It has no restrictions whatsoever, and as long as you have enough soul, you can keep doing it. And again, Rua doesn't stride. He gets CEO Yggdrasil in the hand, but it might be too late, because now stride into Title Bore for Shiro. I don't know Rua's hand enough to know whether or not he can or should stride, so I'm not criticizing it. I'm just curious and concerned as to why he's not doing it. Title Bore is attacking in the second battle, not the third. Quintet Wall. Perfect Guard came up. It's one to pass if he doesn't use it, so he uses it. Good to keep in mind or keep note that Shiro has kind of gone out of his way to not take damage for this entire time. Also, good to note that Rua hasn't gone out of his way to try to give Shiro damage, making it easy for him to not take any. And now he's doing stride instead of riding CEO Yggdrasil. Really, really interesting choice. So Counterblast 1 when it attacks the Vanguard. Because he has a Regalia Heart, he can Soul Charge 3. And unflip 1. He'd also drawn a crit trigger, but he wasn't going to get the crit trigger in the triple check because he would have drawn it with a draw trigger. He does lose defense from doing it that way, though. So Shiro, no guards. No triggers for Rua at all. I feel like his stride was 1 or 2 turns too late. Because now his Lambros. And he's got 4 battles, so it's really, really easy for him to do 2 damage here. Because keep in mind that Vanguard is still Maelstrom. So those grade 2s hit for 11k. The fact that he hasn't gotten a lot of triggers out of deck is actually pretty interesting. He does have 2 heals out, though. So out of the 15 cards left in his deck, he has 2 heals, and if either one of them goes off for the next 2 checks, they'll work. So those 2 other sides are going to hit for 21 and 22. Now more. And unfortunately, that's game. Good team battle. DS doesn't win this one. I feel like Rua could have done a lot of things differently in the fight, but at the same time, I don't know his hand. The fact that he wasn't guarding a lot of attacks makes me feel like he didn't have a lot of grade zeros in hand, so I feel like he could have done some strides. Leading up to CEO Yggdrasil. But, hindsight, good games.